Let's take you back to the U.S. now, where President Cyril Ramaphosa is on a working visit there. He is now in a breakfast meeting with U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris. Let's get the latest update now. We're now joined by our correspondent, Kate Fisher. She's stationed at the White House in Washington. A very good day to you, Kate. We've seen the president earlier then meeting with the vice president, in fact, entering her residence there. What is happening on your side, and what can we expect later on? And also to come out of those discussions, we saw the vice president briefly addressing the media on the steps there.
Yeah, that's right. He's had a breakfast meeting with the Vice President, and he and his aides are now moving on towards the South African Embassy here in Washington. Well, they'll be meeting leaders of the civil rights movement, veterans of the civil rights movement in the US, as well as congressional leaders to discuss how far civil rights have come in this country and how far they haven't, and to hold a meeting with some of those lawmakers from the US as well. That's all ahead of when he'll be making his way here to where I am at the White House just after lunch, around 2 p.m. He is due to have a meeting with President Biden in the Oval Office. We'll be able to see them just at the beginning of that meeting and get a few comments from them. Press will not be allowed behind those closed doors while the two men discuss many things on their agenda, everything from Ukraine to trade and investment. And I think speaking and listening to people here in Washington, Ukraine could be a big issue for President Biden. He really wants to see South Africa come out in more support of US sanctions and no longer be in that neutral position it's taken so far about Russia's role in the invasion of Ukraine. But also trade and investment, vitally important to both of these countries. South Africa wants to see more of it, and the US wants to do more of it. There's plenty to discuss as well when it comes to climate change, health, infrastructure. They've got a lot on their plates.
Yeah, and as you talk about Russia, Ukraine, we're hearing that the US has said that they value South Africa's influence, and one wonders why they value, why the US values South Africa's input, and why the US seems to so strongly want to remove South Africa from their stance of neutrality. Do we have a clear understanding as to why this is the case?
Yeah, I think it is all about the US understanding that Africa is an incredibly important, the continent of Africa is an incredibly important global player, and South Africa is the leading economy and political system there. And they know that to have influence on the continent of Africa, they need to have a good and strong relationship with South Africa. And for that to happen, they need to listen to South Africa. They need to understand its point of view and where it's coming from. And that is a very different stance to Joe Biden's predecessor, Donald Trump, who was very rude about the continent and didn't visit it, did not engage particularly with it. The Biden administration says that is going to change, and part of the reason for that is he needs and wants South Africa's support in his condemnation of Russia. The Biden administration knows that its greatest foes on the world stage, Russia and China, have a much bigger influence in many African countries than they do, and they want and need that to change. And they see South Africa as the key to doing that.
All right, thanks very much to you. That is Kate Fisher for us in Washington, D.C. Of course, where President Cyril Ramaphosa is on a working visit there. I believe he's just come out of that breakfast meeting he was having with U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris, and is set to, of course, go to the White House to have the meeting with the President, Joe Biden. Will certainly be staying on the story.